Hi, my name is Felicia Sam King, and you're going to be listening on Fade Talks Mental Health of the African Diaspora. I have my uncle here, and would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello, folks. My name is Jacob Palmer. I'm originally from Sierra Leone. Came to the United States here as a refugee in 1998 after this, due to the civil war in Sierra Leone, and I live in New Jersey, USA, with my family.
All right. And how old were you when the Civil War happened in Sierra Leone?
Actually, the civil war started in 1991. Um, and then probably, let me see, let me try to date myself now. I was probably, I was in my 91, what was I? I was in my 30s then when the war started. And then it was an 11-year war.
Hmm.
It officially ended in 2002. So yeah, I was in my 30s. So I got to experience the war, right from the beginning of the war itself. And because I was working at that time in the provinces where the war started. So I got to see firsthand, how the war started and what happened and the atrocities that took place. Yeah. So,
And where did you live at that time?
well, I was living in Freetown, but then I was working for Barclays Bank in Sierra Leone. So I got transferred to Kenema, which is in the eastern province of Sierra Leone. I got transferred to Kenema in 90 in I think in 1990, and then that was in the eastern province. It's a diamond mining area, and
Hmm.
the war really started like probably like 100 miles or so outside of Kenema. So I was there in 1991 when the first shots were fired.
Okay. And was your parents alive at that time?
Well, yes, my dad was, yes, my both my parents were still alive.
Okay. What did your parents do, and how did that affect you mentally?
Oh, it was because it was more traumatic for my parents because I was living in an area where the war was like 100 or so miles away, and they were living in Freetown. And then, of course, they were worried about what's going on with us over there, and that affected them in a way. And because, mind you, communication was very difficult back then. We
Hmm.
had no cell phones, so communicating with me out there was a problem for them. But so we had to send messages with people. Hey, I'm safe. I'm all right. The war is
Hmm.
still a ways off from me. So that helped. Then I got to go to Freetown on weekends, so they would see me, and then I would try to allay their fears because, in actual fact, the war we did not really get the full impact of it at that time until like 6 months or so down the road.
Okay. If you want to talk about it, or if you had the choice, I mean, you have a choice. If you want to talk about it, um, I want to ask you, what was the most traumatic experience that you remember from the war, and how did that affect you mentally?
Oh, there's one experience I would never forget, and we had gone. One of my customers at the bank was affected by the war, and so we had gone to like it's probably like 20 miles outside Kenema
Hmm.
to look at his facilities that were destroyed. I was there with the bank. I was the bank's accountant at the time, and then I was there with the manager who went to look at what's going on over there. Because it was relatively, they had told us it was relatively safe.
Mm.
And then when we went out there, everything was fine. On our way back, we came across a group of the rebels then, They had gone outside to another village. They had destroyed the village, killed some folks. But the one thing I would always remember was that in front of their vehicle, and we were driving in opposite direction,
Mm.
their vehicle had the amputated head of one of the soldiers who were fighting against them.
Mm.
And the head was attached to the grill of right in front of the vehicle. So, and we were driving just past them. We saw that, and that was an experience I would never forget. You know,
Wow.
and it's from that point onwards that we realized that this is going to be serious. You know,
Mm.
so we closed our sub branches that we had in the area then,
Mm.
um, before we moved to Freetown.
Mm.
Yeah, but for personally, it was a grueling experience for me.
Yeah. And do you believe more mental health services should be in Sierra Leone?
You see, if I should go back, the problem then was that there was virtually no mental health services then.
Mm.
And at that time in 1991, 92 onwards, Sierra Leone had only just one psychiatric hospital. And that
It's
house,
still there to this day.
right, that hospital was ill equipped then.
Hmm.
We had only one psychiatrist, and we did not have therapists that would help us to go through all these traumatic experiences, and I think it's still the case,
It is.
so I mean a lot happened after the war, or you know they provided other services, but mental health services, in fact, was lacking, and it's still lacking to this day. And I think people are still having the effects of these traumatic experiences.
Um, just the other day, I just had an email from my website from someone that was from Sierra Leone, and he was very brave and he took the initiative to tell me his problem and that he needed help. And I also emailed him back and I told him that because I'm just starting this project, I won't be able to help you at this time, but you could always email me, you could always talk to me, because I feel like when you're talking to someone that is mentally ill and is going through things, they feel more secure than if they're going through it alone, because that can
Right.
lead to suicide. It can lead to him harming himself. So I'm like, you know what? If you need somebody to talk to, you can always email me and my team, and we'll always get back to you. And I also told him that if my project is successful, I will be gladly to help you. And
Yeah.
that really pushed me to really fight for mental health services in Sierra Leone more.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly what's needed. Some
Mm-hmm.
sort of therapy for people, and
Mm-hmm.
because when you go on for years without having any sort of help,
Mm-hmm.
your situation becomes more critical. It becomes more difficult for you to go through the experience. So I think mental health therapy discussions with people are very much needed, even at this time, because some of the kids who saw those atrocities are adults now, and they've, they're still living the experience. So we see people going around with other issues, but I believe that the underlying factor could be the experiences they had during the war.
Is there anything else that you would like to talk about that needs to be discussed of what's going on in Sierra Leone?
Well, yes, I mean, in terms of the war, we know the war ended already years ago, but the effects are still being felt in a sizable portion of the population. Because, the kids who saw their parents being killed in 2000 are probably, are like 20 years old now, 25 years old now. And they've gone through all those experiences without much help. So I think we should be able to start something that would help these kids or these young adults right now, because they went through some traumatic experiences that affected them, and it's probably still affecting them. Um, so I know it's very difficult for developing countries to to really invest in mental health care, but it's very important for the overall health of the entire population. You know, because in Africa and in Sierra Leone in particular, I mean, it's taboo to talk about certain mental health issues. Most people deal with it without even discoursing with it. Families don't want to talk about it,
Hmm.
you know. So we have to create an atmosphere wherein people will be free, will feel free to come up to us with their mental health problems or issues. And if you see somebody with an issue, I mean, there should be somewhere else, somebody you can contact that would be able to help. But that's largely not being done, you
Hmm.
know. And it's one subject that I think Africans have to start to embrace. We've really ignored that aspect of our day-to-day life that's affecting a sizable portion of our population, for that
Hmm.
matter. So if we can get people involved in this discussion and also in getting help for people when they need one, that would be very good. That would help. It would help in the overall health of the country or for the general population.
Yes. What you just said really sat with me because the main reason why I made my social media accounts about mental health was because of the fact that I'm seeing other countries in Africa, like, of course, Ghana and Nigeria. And it was this other country, Togo, that is really trying to push forward about mental health services. And I know it's going to take a long time because it's not just the government. You also have to change the mindset of the people, and I wasn't seeing that type of platform for Sierra Leone. And then also my experience with my father as well, even though like he didn't really consider mental health a thing, we never talked about or anything like that. I've seen signs in him from him fighting in the war with, with alcohol problems and stuff like that. And that also affected me. And you know how, just for Black people in America, it's hard to access things when it comes to healthcare and stuff. But the fact that I actually had some type of access to mental health services, I could only imagine how people back home are feeling or the type access they are having when they don't have mental health services. So that's why I was like, you know what, let me make this platform because I know there's a lot of Sierra Leoneans that use Facebook. If they could see that someone like me or someone that is from their country, they could start talking about and having conversations about what's going on with them. Because like you said, talking about your mental illness is taboo. Most countries in Africa, mental illness is like a person that has gone mad by the hands of voodoo or witchcraft or some type of evil spirit, but that's not the case. So
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm really happy that I had this conversation with you.
Indeed, indeed. I mean, me too. I mean, it's a conversation we should start to have, especially uh, because we have a sizable portion of our population back home, especially, who are being affected by issues like this. So, if we start to have the conversation and everybody got involved, we would be able to create an impact and help in one way or the other. This is exactly what's needed.
Um, I have one last question. What do you know from your experience where African parents or African immigrants, what do you think that they're going through mentally when they first come in the country when it comes to them being refugees from civil wars?
Oh, it's. I mean, I go through a lot. I mean, I would use myself as an example. Um, Coming into the country as a refugee, first of all, you come into a different culture. Um, you were not prepared for this. You know, in as much as you come into the United States, you're just not prepared for it. And then you come here, um, resettling your life in the United States is not easy. Um, some of us, we are like had comfortable jobs before we left Sierra Leone on the war. But then you come here you're not going to get the same job. You're not going to be the manager that you were back
Mm-hmm.
home.
Yeah.
So that in itself can be unsettling. Um, but you should try to cope with that and try to, assimilate yourself into the American culture as best you could. And we should always also not forget that you probably come in with children.
Mm.
Now, for children to adapt is also not easy. Um, they come in here probably at the age of 9, 10. They go to school. Bullying is one factor in school for kids who coming in as refugees.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to learn to cope with that as well, also how to talk to your kids about it. Um, and basically housing is a problem, you know. So there are a lot of issues you would have to deal with. But al- also, I found that the community at large, our African community, do help when they can in certain areas. So because if they know you're here, they could help in certain for getting you settled down,
Mm-hmm.
probably in proper housing and stuff like that. Um, but then that's also one of the reasons why the community has to come together. Because I found out that a lot of people come in here, they don't get the necessary help from the African diaspora itself,
Yeah.
because and then they get into problems. They have issues. They started having issues, and that would create problems for them. First of all, in the household,
Mm-hmm.
and then even in the workplace. You know, and also I found out that you need to have somebody you can go to and to discuss your problems with. Now, when we came in as refugees, we had a resettlement agency that helped us. So we could go to them if we have issues in certain areas. They had social workers who were helping us. But a lot of people come here without that kind of help.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a social worker to just talk to when they have issues, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So, and I think if as a community we can organize ourselves and offer some sort of help when needed, advice when needed, that would help people who come into the country and try to help them resettle so that they could make a better life for themselves out here. And also education is very important. We encourage people to go to school to learn something new, which can be very difficult for adults. But that itself would help you assimilate into the American culture, American system, and the way of life. Because you really need that if you have to survive in this country, if you have to improve yourself in the United States. So these are the things I would love to see happen. If we can come together as a community to to help folks who are just coming in.
All right. I thank you so much for having this conversation with me. And do
Okay.
you have any like social media platform that you would like to promote?
Um, um, Not yet. Well, actually, what I do have is I did start at the foundation. It's called Project Step. It's a skills training and empowerment project for Sierra Leone. What we do is that we help young folks, give them the education they need for skills empowerment, because that has been lacking for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is that we support them. We pay for students in like vocational schools, so they could learn certain skills in like tailoring, in like carpentry, stuff like that. And then when they're done with their education, we try to provide them with the tools they need to start their own um, business, to start their own craft, so they could at least be self-employed. We've just started. We've been given scholarships, helping kids in Port Loko district and also in Freetown. But we're still trying to get funds and stuff like that to help more people back there.
I would love to collab with you when my project is actually like finished, because with your foundation, that really stuck with me because I know most kids that are struggling in schools that do need help to get into schools, they're also going through a lot of stuff mentally when it comes to their home. And
Yeah,
if we would like to collab when it comes to helping them get into a situation so their future will be better, but also make sure that they're concentrating on the stuff that is going on in school and it's not affecting them outside from the outside.
indeed, yes, yeah. Yeah, it's a very good idea, really.
Hmm.
We're just trying to get funds. We've helped a very small number for now, but we hope to improve on that in the coming years or so.
All right.
And then we would love really to work with you when you started. The more people we have, the better.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay then.
All right. I thank you so much. Okay.
Okay, me too. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Wish you well as you start your project. Wishing for you the very best and for the people of Sierra Leone as well. All the best.